Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Kris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.
How are we doing, Kansas City? Welcome to Kingdom Radio. I am your host, Richard Smith. And with me, as always, my co-host and senior NFL analyst, Kris Chavez. How are we doing tonight, Kris?
I'm doing really good. I've had a good weekend. All my teams are winning right now. It's fantastic.
And you had a soccer match earlier today, correct?
Yeah, I played in a game, and we ended up winning in some really windy weather out here in New Mexico. We won 4-2, and then our local professional soccer team won and got into the playoffs last night.
Hey, well, that's awesome that your local professional team is getting it done. And so let's hear some of your stats. Let's hear a little bit about Kris Chavez, the soccer player here. Let's listen to your season stats. Tell everybody what you're doing here.
All right, so this is our first season having been moved up into the second tier, and this is a co-ed soccer team. And when we first got moved up, we kind of struggled a little bit, but recently we kind of put things together. And the last 3 weeks, we've had 3 wins in a row. I've ended up scoring a goal and getting at least 1 assist in every game.
Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome. I like to hear what's going on within the family of Kingdom Radio, because I always stress how much of, a family we are, and, we need to know a little bit about Kris Chavez. And so, hey, look, we're going to switch gears here tonight. Kris, I'm happy to have you here. And we're going to hop right into Chiefs football before we talk about the rest of the NFL, because there's some exciting stuff going on in the NFL today. But first and foremost, Adam Scheffler reported that Patrick Mahomes could be ready November 18th versus the Chargers. So that would put him, less than a month out. And I feel like this is a great scenario for the Kansas City Chiefs as long as everything, goes as planned. But it is this is the best outlook that you could possibly have. This is the best scenario that we could have with Patrick Mahomes. And that's the best thing about this, is that's what's going on. So, Kris, what are your thoughts about that?
While best case scenario is Mahomes comes back as soon as possible, you also have to remember that he's also dealing with the ankle issue as well. As long as we are competitive / winning in these games that he is out for, I would rather he take a break and get as close to 100% healthy as possible.
Well, I have to agree with you. Obviously, I've stated, over and over and over again that I really would like for us to sit Mahomes, but that's hard. That's really one of those scenarios where that's ultimately out of the question. But for that to be the scenario, 10 days before our next game, and then what is it? The Packers, and then is it the Chargers?
No, we got Minnesota after that,
yeah,
and then Tennessee Titans, and then the San Diego Chargers.
Okay, so we will have 3 games without him. But it's almost confirmed. But I don't think that's such a horrible window for us to be in.
Yeah, and let's say hypothetically that he does come back in 2 weeks, and he'll come back as in he can start to practice and he's quote unquote available to play. I would much rather that he take the Tennessee game and he's just backing up Matt Moore, and he's able to step in if need be in order to win that game. Because honestly, that's a game that we should not lose. The Green Bay game, it's a possibility. I don't want to. Well, it's the next week. There's no way he'd be ready. The Minnesota game the following week, there's the potential that he could be ready for that game. I don't want to rush him back. I don't want to jeopardize him and his long-term health just for one win.
Right. And I agree with you. And this is, just like this is something that I've stated previously as well. And so have you. And I'm sure everybody in Chiefs Kingdom is now taking heed to that. But it's, I don't want to, risk our future, like you said, just for one play, for one game. No matter if it's freak accident or not, we've had a lot of those with Patrick Mahomes this season. And let's just get him healthy, like you're saying. So, hey, another thing, Andy Reid, we didn't touch base on this in our last episode. And as soon as we were done recording, you touched base on this. But Andy Reid, 200th win as an NFL head coach. Kind of speak on that a little bit, Kris. What are your thoughts about that? First of all, congratulations, Big Red. That's a huge accomplishment. Look, and I'm happy that you hit this milestone in Kansas City. Kris, take off on what you feel about Andy Reid's 200th win.
Congratulations, Big Red. First and foremost, very appreciative that you were willing to get that win as a Kansas City Chief. Secondly, you got it against Denver. And then in true Andy Reid fashion, in your response to getting that 200th win is, I'm old. That was fantastic. I think that it truly does mean a lot to you, Andy Reid. And now it's just a matter of getting you the next milestone, getting you that Super Bowl ring.
Yes, and I'm sure everybody in Kansas City cannot wait for that to happen. And look, this is a coaching career that started in the NFL in 1992 with the Green Bay Packers. But I do want to say, I'm not sure how many people know this or realize this here in Chiefs Kingdom, but he was a college coach as well, an offensive line coach as well as an offensive coordinator. And he went from the University of Missouri. He was a coach at Missouri and, made his entrance into the NFL due to his tenure there. So that's really awesome, and I wanted to share that with Chiefs Kingdom. But, this man has been around around football for 36 years, and as 200 wins as a head coach in the NFL, that's really hard to do. And hats off to Andy Reid. Congratulations on that. You, in my mind, are a Hall of Fame quarterback. But like Kris said, let's get you a ring, buddy. And what better place to do it than Kansas City?
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we do that this year, and then we have a plethora of them coming in the next couple years.
Yes, and as long as Mahomes stays healthy, our offensive line stays healthy, I think we'll be A-okay. And so we really need to get that side of things done here in Kansas City, and it's looking better and better as the weeks go on. I'm glad Mahomes is young and can heal quick, but we do not need a repeat of any of this ever again. So, look, speaking of Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes is the fastest quarterback in the history of the league to throw for 7,500 passing yards. And it only took him 24 games. And he did this in a game where he dislocated his kneecap. Excuse me. And that's the soldier that we have and Patrick Mahomes. And I really, I really love this kid's drive. And it's incredible to see what he's doing. Kurt Warner did it in 27 games. 3 fewer games. This kid is on pace to really do something special. Kris, go ahead and talk to us about that a little bit, because that's something special that Chiefs Kingdom's never seen, the NFL's never seen. You think it'll continue?
Absolutely. And the really incredible thing is that Mahomes, with the dislocated kneecap, could potentially be back by the 27th game, in which Kurt Warner ended up setting the record prior to him. And that in itself is pretty incredible as well, is that he's going to be able to take some time off and still come back, in which he could have broken that record anywhere in that time frame had he been healthy. The way that this guy is putting up yards is absolutely incredible. And like you said, it's at a pace and a rate that the NFL has never really seen before. I mean, to beat Kurt Warner, the greatest show on turf, by 3 games is pretty incredible.
Yes, yeah, and I could not agree more with you. This is an exciting time. We do have the Michael Jordan of football, and even when the injury happened, you saw the reaction to from the Broncos players, and even Michael Jordan wished him well, and that is true on Twitter. Michael Jordan wished him well. The whole world is backing this guy up, and I know Mahomes has got it in him. We just got to get him healthy, get him back on the field. But with that production, 7,500 yards and only 24 games, I think this next stat is not going to surprise anyone, but I want to bring it to the table. And what better time to do that than on Kingdom Radio? Every single Chiefs starting wide receiver and our tight end, Travis Kelce, have more than 10 yards per reception average for the season through 7 weeks. And in my mind, that is an amazing stat, and I've never seen that before with a Kansas City Chiefs roster. Did you know that, Kris?
I had an inkling, but I hadn't seen it. And if I remember correctly, I believe that it's our top 4, technically, if you throw in Robinson and Hartman in there. I could be wrong there, but I think that we could have our top 4 and Kelce.
I mean, that very well could be. I mean, so what, DeMarcus Robinson?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, before the show is over, I'm going to test you to find that stat. But I think that's a, that stat right there is a testament to what Mahomes is able to do, here in the first 24 games. It's really incredible. And the, our impact players, our dynamic players should really tip their hat to Mahomes, because this is something that the NFL typically doesn't see. And I'm not sure, what other teams in the NFL are, have all of their specialty players coming in with over 10 yards per reception for the season. So
okay, Rippy. So I got the stat for you, bro.
Okay, what we got?
Okay, so our top 7 receivers all have an average of 10 or higher. So I'm going to run down this list really quickly.
Okay.
Okay, Travis Kelce with a 14.2, Sammy Watkins with 15.9, Hartman with 17.7, D-Rob 15.6, Cheetah 17 even, Darrell Williams 13.4, and Byron Pringle 14.7.
So Kansas City, if that doesn't tell you anything about the type of quarterback that we have and his ability to spread the ball around, you all haven't watched very much football before. This boy is bad. This boy is bad, and he is really elevating everybody's game. Think of the value of each one of these wide receivers at the end of the season, when their yards per reception is above 10 yards, because I believe that he can hold that all the way through the season, all those averages, and think about the value that'll hold to the rest of the NFL, when they're looking for a receiver. It's going to be fun. And look, you had touched base on something, and this kind of rolls right into this, about building talent underneath Patrick Mahomes. Like, let's be known for a team that produces quarterbacks, and you know, we're shipping those guys out as well. If Mahomes can be a teacher as well as a football player, which he is, I mean, it's just in his blood. But I feel like we get the right guys underneath of him, he can really do something special and bring more value to Kansas City. So, Kris, touch base on that, because you were the one that was really ultimately started that chat about the Chiefs producing quarterbacks under Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, so earlier today, you and I were having a conversation, and I just threw out a name as a potential backup that we could potentially seek for pretty cheap. At least I would think that we could get him pretty cheap, and potentially let Andy Reid work his magic on him, and potentially spin it and then trade him further on down the road. We could potentially talk to the Tennessee Titans and see if we could get Marcus Mariota for, let's say, a 5th-round draft pick. And the reason being is that he's never really had a good team with a lot of weapons around him. And if we could potentially give him that opportunity, and again, we're not really looking for anything long term. I mean, the starter position's pretty well set, and at least this next weekend against Green Bay, Matt Moore's pretty much got that all locked up. But long term, if we were to make that trade, we'd have an experienced starter as our backup, which was the plan the entire time. But then potentially we could flip him, because he's still young enough that he still has enough years ahead of him that he could be a valuable piece to a team in the future who, let's say in this next draft, ends up drafting somebody that needs some time off the field, needs to study underneath somebody. We could then trade that piece to that team and get some value back. So in theory, we could take the New England Patriots model, where we draft or we trade for a quarterback, develop them, and then trade them later on, and then we just have a churning backup cycle behind Patrick Mahomes, because he's got the position on lock right now.
Yes, and so, you know, just to let it be known, per NFL.com, the Chiefs really do not intend to go get a quarterback, but this is a hypothetical, conversation here with Mariota. But, you know, I don't think he would be a bad backup, and let Andy Reid get his hands on him and watch the way, Patrick Mahomes goes about his everyday business, and tell me that won't change any quarterback's perspective and, their game, period. You're kind of at a look, you better play harder than you ever played in your life, because you have, the best to ever step on the field potentially with Patrick Mahomes, and you have to live up to that. If he goes off the field, we need victories. Is Mariota the answer? I mean, possibly, like you said, for a backup for a low-end draft pick, I would do that. The bad thing about this whole scenario is, number one, it's a hypothetical. Number two, that's the best option the Chiefs have. There's really nothing out there as far as quarterbacks right now, and that makes it even more. I guess it makes it an easier decision for Kansas City, but at the same time, maybe a frustrating decision. But we also have no idea what Matt Moore is going to do, other than what he showed us in this past game. But he didn't look bad. Let's give him a chance and see what he can do.
Yeah, and earlier this afternoon I saw an article, again a hypothetical, where the Chiefs should go after Josh Rosen, and I just can't see that as a good option. Welcome back, Kingdom. We had some technical difficulties there. Earlier today, I'd seen an article that had Josh Rosen rumored to be a potential backup target for us, and that sounds probably like one of the most ludicrous ideas possible, just because he hasn't done anything or shown any potential really. And even coming out of college, I never really thought that he was going to be a good target or a good quarterback in the league. And the price tag that he would come with is way too high, way too steep to even try to turn him around and get anything for him. Mariota, on the other hand, and we should be able to get him pretty cheap because, I mean, let's be real, the Titans are going to be looking to move on from him. If they can get anything for him, they should take that deal as opposed to just lose him for nothing in the offseason. So we offer them a 5th-round pick. If they take it, cool. If not, we have Shermer come off the practice squad for a couple of weeks, and then we send him back when Mahomes comes back.
Hey, so I guess sorry, I got lost there. I got lost a little bit. But yes, Mariota could potentially be a great backup choice for Kansas City moving forward, and something now that we all see is important. It's like I said, injuries happen. Anything can happen at any given play, and it'd be nice to have a solidified backup, and a backup that we could craft and, like you said, dish off to another team. But with that being said, we're going to move on. We're going to get into our next segment here.
This is Around the NFL, brought to you by Pizza Shop Plat City. Go grab yourself a butcher block. Best meat lovers in Kansas City. Pizza Shop Plat City, proud sponsor of Kingdom Radio. Pizza Shop Plat City.
All right, this is Around the NFL, brought to you by Plat City Pizza Shop. Get up there and get yourself a butcher block. The best meat lovers in Kansas City. Kris, today was kind of an interesting day around the NFL, and there's still a game going on right now. Dallas is actually putting it on Philadelphia, 27-7, and there's 5:15 left in the third quarter, and that's a pretty interesting score. I figured that game would be a little bit closer. The San Francisco 49ers are still undefeated, beating a dismal Washington Redskins team. What was that score? 9-0. So the Redskins dropped to 1-6, and the 49ers are 6-0. That's a pretty great start for a 49ers team that really has looked pretty bad here in the last decade. The Arizona Cardinals win 27-21 over the New York Giants. Here's a game that's interesting and held value to us here in Chiefs Kingdom, and me personally. The Indianapolis Colts beat the Houston Texans 30-23, and both of these teams were teams that have beat Kansas City the last 2 weeks. So Indianapolis, came out on top, and that's a team that's looking stronger than we thought. Jacoby Brissett's really looking good. Indianapolis might be a team that we have to look out for. And moving on here into the division, Kris, tell us a little bit about this Green Bay Oakland game.
So Green Bay took it to Oakland 42-24. Aaron Rodgers threw for 429 yards. Josh Jacobs of the Raiders ended up leading all rushers with 124 yards. Aaron Rodgers had himself a phenomenal day. He threw for 5 touchdowns, he threw for 4 touchdowns and ran in another one.
And look, here's the deal. This game holds a lot of value to Kansas City as well. Number one, we always want Oakland to lose. We don't care, what who the divisional opponents are playing. We really just want them to lose. And so that did happen today, and it dropped Oakland down to 3-3, but now gives Green Bay a little bit of momentum, going into next week playing us, the Chiefs, here at Arrowhead Stadium. But the game looked close early, to be honest with you. It really was a close game, and then Green Bay attacked. Oakland mistakes, turnovers, and it really. Green Bay just ran away with it. So Minnesota beat Detroit 42-30. Kris, tell us a little bit about this game and the significance that it holds for the Kansas City Chiefs as well.
So Minnesota is going to be the second team that we see without Patrick Mahomes, and I was really interested in that game particularly. And Minnesota is looking really good. They're firing on all cylinders. Dalvin Cook rushed for 142. Stephon Diggs hauled in 142 yards. Minnesota has really put it together the last 2 weeks. At the start of the season, they were kind of iffy, but they're looking really good lately.
So, and, Minnesota, obviously, like you said, is a team we have to watch out for because, that's coming up in the schedule here with Patrick Mahomes out, and that's one of the games that I personally am a little bit more nervous about, than the other two. There's just a lot of ways that Minnesota can put points on the board, and can our defense stop that? And so, okay, moving on. Jacksonville beat Cincinnati 27-17. Miami lost to the Buffalo Bills 31 to. Was that? Excuse me, I lost that. Yeah, 31-21. I apologize. Atlanta loses at home to the LA Rams 37-10. The Rams are on a roll. And that's a team in the NFC that everybody should be looking out for, as expected. Tennessee beat the Los Angeles Chargers 23-20. And we're going to come back to that game here in just a second. We have a couple more scores to get through, but I really want to focus on that. Baltimore, look what they did. They beat Seattle 30-16, and Marcus Peters, what a way to start out his tenure with the Baltimore Ravens. What better way than to take an interception back to the house, 67 yards for a touchdown in his first game with the Ravens. He's doing his thing everywhere. Let's see what happens with the Ravens. But, hey, that's a great way to start out. And then, so look at New Orleans beat up on Chicago 36-25. And was that the battle of the backup quarterbacks there?
No, Mitchell Trubisky returned for this one.
Oh, Trubisky was back. I see. And so Trubisky was back, and Teddy Bridgewater still beat up on him, huh?
Absolutely.
Hey, well, that's pretty tough going there in Chicago. I'm not sure that's what they expected for this season. But hey, look, we have them at the end of the season, so it's really nice for us to see the Bears get a loss. So let's go back to this Los Angeles Chargers Tennessee Titans game, and we're going to fast forward all the way to the last minute of the game, and I'm going to run through the sequence of events here, because look, the Chargers ultimately had every chance in the world to put the ball in the end zone. Kris? They had 3 separate chances at the 1-yard line, with reviews, all kinds of crazy stuff. Kris, it was wild, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. And, three plays from the 1-yard line or inside, and they couldn't put it in. it was kind of, I won't say ridiculous, but you expect better of an NFL team. And, I mean, they could have just done a QB sneak with Rivers and put it in.
Yeah. I mean, Melvin Gordon just, he couldn't get his feet set. He couldn't drive. I mean, and he fumbled the ball on the last play. And that's what it was. It ended in a touchback. So, look, the series of events, I've got to read this off because this was a crazy way to end the game. The Chargers had the ball first and goal with 39 seconds left. And it was a first and goal on the 5-yard line. A false start brought them back to the 5-yard line. Excuse me. They had it on the 1. False start brought them back to the 5. So that's first down again. And then there was a pass interference on Malcolm Butler in the end zone, which put him back on the 1-yard line with 34 seconds left. Still first down. 1-yard line, they hand the ball off to Melvin Gordon. And they called it a touchdown, I believe. And then they reviewed the play and then put it on the 1-yard line. And then it was second and goal. The clock is still running. Melvin Gordon was held again after a review. And they put 7 seconds back on the clock. And then they ran the ball again. And Melvin Gordon fumbled on the 1-yard line. And Tennessee Titans recovered the ball in the end zone for a touchback to end the game. But that was just a crazy series of events to end a football game.
Absolutely. But I'm going to jump back one series in the game. When Tennessee had the ball, they had it on second down, and I want to say a second down and 7, give or take. So, and instead of handing the ball off to Derrick Henry, they tried throwing the ball. And it was an incomplete pass, so then 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, they had to throw it again to try to get the first down. It was an incomplete pass. No, it was a complete pass, excuse me. And then they were like 1 inch short from getting a first down. 4th and 1, and they go for it. And on the QB sneak, Tannehill gets stopped. And so Chargers get the ball, and they end up going down and creating that series of events. If Tennessee had ran the ball to Derrick Henry, like any good team would do in that situation, it's game over. You don't have to worry about that goal line stuff because it never would have happened.
Right. No argument there at all. That's the icing on the cake. So that really was an end to an incredible game. And what better, way to end that than a divisional loss. That was awesome. A team in our division. Every team in our division, the AFC West, lost today. And so, look, we're going to go into our next segment here, and we're going to pop back to the AFC West. But, look, we got to do the no-look pass.
This is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions, providing everything from simple background audio to complex creative audio pieces. Bring your project to life with Sean and Keogh Music Solutions.
All right, this is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions. And this is where Kris and I pick each other's brains about our NFL knowledge, and we never know what we're going to ask each other. So, Kris, I'm going to let you take off tonight with your no-look pass.
Okay, so I've actually been kind of saving this one up for a couple of weeks. And now that the trade deadline has almost passed, if you're making the first pick next year's draft for the Patriots.
Hold on, you're breaking up. Hold on. Hey, you're breaking up. Start over.
Okay. If you were making the first pick in next year's draft, what position do you focus on? and assume that free agency starts after the draft, even though it really doesn't.
Oh, wow. And this is is this with our team right now or a healthy Kansas City Chiefs? Kris.
Yeah.
Is this right now's team or a healthy Kansas City Chiefs?
Healthy Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, so in my mind, I personally, with watching what I have seen out of our offensive line this season, how beat up we are, I personally say we either go after offensive lineman or a cornerback. That's really where I stand with it. I know that's a boo kind of response, but at this point, I'm interested in protecting our investment.
Although we do have some needs in other key positions, if we look at what the Indianapolis Colts did with Andrew Luck for so many years and throwing a haphazard offensive line in front of him, they essentially ruined his career, or drastically shortened his career, excuse me. And we can't put Patrick Mahomes in that position. We need to get him a big, stout offensive line in front of him. And I think we have to go with an offensive line ahead of him.
And look, we're on the same page. And look at where we are here with our superstar quarterback and how much, pressure has been on him this whole season. It's time to protect him. We have to pay that man too. So I say we go after offensive line. Okay, so with that being said, my no-look pass to you tonight, Kris, is Matt Moore has been in the league 12 years now. Okay, this is his 12th season, in the league. What would you say if you had to guess his interceptions to touchdowns? What would you say that would be? How many touchdowns do you think that he has in his career?
I'm pretty sure I saw this stat earlier. This week. I want to say it was it was pretty close. I want to say it was 34-30.
You are really close, okay? You are real close. But you're not quite there. And honestly, I should have asked this question a different way because, now that I look at this stat, I think of our starting quarterback, of course, he's the backup quarterback. But his stat is, he's played in the league for 12 years, and he has 46 touchdowns and 36 interceptions. So I like that he has more touchdowns than interceptions. Let's just hope that, he just adds to his touchdown columns here in the next 3 days or 3 weeks. But here's my thing. Patrick Mahomes has more touchdowns in one season than this man has in his entire 12-year career. And that's really my no-look pass.
Yeah, well, he's been a career backup for the most part. I think he only had one season where he had a couple games collectively where he ended up being the starter. Those numbers really don't surprise me from him.
In 2011, he threw for 2,497 yards and 16 touchdowns with 9 interceptions. And look, that really sounds like Alex Smith numbers. If he can come in and just manage the game a little bit and do his thing, I really hope that he can carry us through here for a little bit. You look at his stats, they are really all over the board season to season, and that's a really scary thing. What Matt Moore is going to come to the table for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's the best version of Matt Moore.
That's what we're looking for. All right, so look, we're going to get back here to the okay, well, we're on the Chiefs, but we're going to get back here to the AFC West. We're going to talk about the West a little bit more because as it stands right now, the Kansas City Chiefs have a 1.5 game lead on the Oakland Raiders. And as it stacks up right now, Kansas City is on top with a 5-2 record. The Oakland Raiders are there behind us with 3-3. Denver Broncos are sitting in third spot at 2-5, followed by the Los Angeles Chargers, who are also sitting at 2-5. So they're really sitting in the cellar together. But it's really nice to see us on top heading into this, this 3-game stretch. And look, it was also nice to see all three of these teams essentially lose today. And Kris, I'm not sure if you have the schedule in front of you and what it's looking like for Oakland, Denver, and the Chargers going forward. But where does Kansas City stack up here in the next 3 games? And, are we sitting okay here in the AFC West enough for you not to be nervous?
Well, I'm definitely nervous at this point. Even with the best that Matt Moore has to offer, we're playing against 2 very tough NFC North teams right now in Green Bay and what will be Minnesota Vikings the following week. The week after that with Tennessee, I'm not too concerned there. That's a team that we should be, even with Matt Moore. And then the following week, we play the Chargers, who they look awful right now. But we also know that Rivers will always give us a good game. Either it's a very entertaining game where we get to laugh at him, or he makes a game of it and makes it interesting there toward the end.
Yeah, we're going to hope the latter of the two, because we really needed to get a win or two out of this 3-game stretch, and I believe that we can do it. But as far as us really stacking up against the AFC West, kind of get into that a little bit. Let's talk about some of these other teams and what's going on in the West and just how critical it is for the Kansas City Chiefs to be sitting at 5-2.
So the most competent team right now is the Oakland Raiders. They're sitting, like you said, they're sitting at 3-3, and I mean, they've beaten some teams that they shouldn't have beaten, and then they've lost to some teams that, played them really well. And I think that playing the Green Bay team is just going to make them that much stronger. And we play them later on in the season again. We play them in week 2. But, they have the Houston Texans this week. They have Detroit after that. And both of those teams gave us a really good game. I expect them to struggle against the Lions for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, say again?
No, I said, oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely struggle against the Lions.
Yeah. Houston definitely is going to give them fits if they can throw all over the place with them. And then when we're playing the Titans, that week the Raiders play the Chargers. And so we'll be getting the Chargers after a division rivalry game. I expect for the Chargers to be pretty banged up by the time that we see them.
And that's one of those things that, the Chargers and the Broncos are banged up. And, in my mind, I feel like both of these teams are already too far gone. The chances of either of these teams making the playoffs are almost slim to none at this point. And really, Oakland's hanging on that line, too, at 3-3. There's some really good football teams out there. And although there's a little bit of talent, throughout the rest of our division, it really seems like the Chiefs are going to run away with this, even with the 3 games without Mahomes. Look, if we came out 5-5, which I don't look at that happening, but if that was to happen, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if Mahomes came back, a healthy Mahomes, with a healthy offensive line, and barring no other injuries, hey, he could come out and really light up the league and take us into the home stretch on a tear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to go back to the Raiders' schedule real quick because I was looking at it throughout the rest of the season. and they're playing some pretty caked teams here. They've got a series of the Bengals and the Jets, where both of those teams are looking atrocious right now. We play them December 1st, and then they get the Titans after that, Jaguars, and then they finish up with the Chargers and the Broncos. There's a good chance these guys could end up being 10-6, 9-5, and potentially getting a wild card berth into the playoffs.
So Oakland's really played through the worst part of their record.
Yeah, they still have 2 more games, like we were talking about, with the Texans and the Lions. But then after that, it's a pretty easy schedule for them.
Well, that's one of those things that you still got to be better than Kansas City. And I don't think going into the stretch, Oakland's going to have the gas, especially with a very well-rested Patrick Mahomes coming back on the field. In that last stretch of the season where, most other players are, really having to give it all they have because they're getting gassed out. It's a good time for Patrick Mahomes to get back out on the field. So I still feel like we're looking good here in the AFC West. Yes, Oakland has an easier schedule going out. I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs schedule is pretty tough, all the way through. It's really stacked up against us this season, but I think we're still going to prevail. Like, we'll be all right, Kansas City. I really feel that. Denver, Los Angeles, we'll see what happens. The Chargers usually take off in the second half of the season, but they're really hurting right now, so we'll see what happens there. But, Kris, do you have anything else to add to the show before we end it this evening?
Just one other thing that I know that you wanted to talk about, and I'm just going to throw this at you really quickly. So now that we are like halfway through the season and we've watched this experiment that is coaches' challenges of pass interference.
Oh, yes.
There have been only 7 successful challenges in 40 attempts this year, up until this point.
Yes.
And since week 3, there have been 1 out of 21 successful challenges. So we're looking at overall a 17.5% success rate on pass interference challenges. This needs to go.
Hey, and I'm really, really, really happy that you brought that up. Gosh, I completely forgot all about that. But I love those stats that you brought up because that really, leads me into, this direction is number one right now, after that week 2 or week 3 point is basically a useless challenge. If it's got to be so blatant, that there's no way that anybody could look at it any other way. And some of them have kind of been that way, and they still haven't overturned it. But there's some psychology behind this because coaches know that they're not going to get this call. But in my mind, I've seen this over and over and over again from coaches. It's the heat of the moment. It's the psychology behind the moment of the play. And their very first reaction is to reach for that flag and throw the challenge flag and throw it out because their emotions are tied to the play and tied, to it immediately. And so a lot of that is reactionary. And in their head, they know it. But when you look at it, that very first, you look at it in full motion, and then you see it on the replay, and the replay just fuels the fire even more. And it doesn't matter, who's on the other end of his headset telling him not to throw it. He's not listening to anybody. It's in his heart, like he can feel it, and it's really changing games. You're taking a challenge away from a coach for no reason. You're not going to overturn it. It's a weird psych in my mind how they're running the pass interference review. So, Kris, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and the one of the analysts was discussing it, and they were talking about the way that the rule is written, and I can't remember the exact word, but I mean, I really want the league, the referee league, whatever, to come out and clarify, hey, what the heck they're looking for or on this rule, because looking at some of the Chiefs games, we were playing the Ravens, and their wide receiver clearly shoved the defender away. They reached up and caught the ball at the 2-yard line, and then was tackled there. Or Andy Reid challenged that. I mean, you saw the hands clearly push and shove the defender away. They still didn't overturn that call.
Right.
And I mean, there have been some against the Chiefs as well, and so I'm going to be very fair there. But they need to get this rule written correctly. They need to teach the referees what is and is not reviewed pass interference, and start calling it correctly.
And look, here's the overall view of the referee situation this season. It's in the bottom of the trash, and it's getting to a point where there's people who are starting to express how they feel about this scenario, and that something has to be taken care of. Look, I think that it's time for the NFL to start handing down fines to the officials for horrible play calling. Look, there's been so many penalties this season; it's ridiculous. Like I feel like we're watching basketball. That's legitimately what it seems like as we're watching the basketball. They're just trying to find a way to slow the game down, but it's costing teams victories. It's costing, momentum. It's kind of hurting the game this season.
Yeah, and I never want to harp on referees when they've got so much stuff that they have to look for and do with each one of their jobs. And the only possible fix in the short term is put more referees, put more umpires, put more refs on the field of play so that it delegates the power and not everybody has to do so much.
Yeah. Something needs to happen. I know they've been trying to make corrections, with the referees. And, here's the thing, too, is this has been an issue, last year and, the prior season before that. This has been a progressive thing. It didn't just mysteriously start this season. And the NFL really needs to take care of this scenario because it's aggravating to fans, and it's uncalled for. So look, I do want to mention one more thing before we get off here tonight. Monday Night Football is an important game for Kansas City as well. The New England Patriots go to New Jersey to play the Jets. This is a divisional game for New England. Those divisional games typically can be, harder games for the Patriots. But we'll see what Jets team shows up and if Le'Veon Bell can take control of this game and possibly hand New England their first loss of the season. Before I let you go, Kris, tell me what your thoughts are about New England.
Yeah, the Jets are definitely riding high right now after that big win against Dallas last week.
Yeah. Hey, and so what do you think? What do you think on this game with New England and Jets? Give me your take on it.
I think that the Jets definitely have a very good shot. If they can run the ball with Le'Veon and control the clock, there's a very good chance that they could put down the Patriots and win the game. But they need to control.
Say that last part?
Oh, they just need to control the game and control the clock.
Okay. Well, you're breaking up again, but I heard control the clock. But hey, here's the thing is the Patriots need to start losing some games for Kansas City. As it's sitting right now, obviously, Kansas City, I believe we're in the 3rd spot. I would love to see us climb up and take this 2 spot, because it's going to be really hard for us to catch up to New England, especially with Patrick Mahomes out for 3 games. But boy, did we get him back at a perfect time, to make our run. And I don't think it's going to be hard for us to win the AFC West. So Kansas City, hang in there. Patrick Mahomes, you get that ankle better, because we got a Super Bowl to win.
Thank you for tuning in to Kingdom Radio, your go-to podcast for everything Kansas City Chiefs.